welcome to Grade 8, Term 2 and Unit 2. And this term we are going to make this apron. So this is the apron we're going to be making. It has a tie that actually threads through a channel on the side here and around the back. You can dress it up, you can dress it down. We are going to go with a plain fabric like this for your background, and that is actually going to have been cut out for you by Mrs. Crook. When you get your pattern pieces, you're going to get the full big pattern piece of the apron, as well as 3 straps. So you're going to have this big piece in a plain color and in drill fabric. So this is drill fabric. It's nice and strong and sturdy, and you'll be able to wear it for a long time. It also will stop the water or anything really getting through to your clothing. So that's the best fabric to use. And you're going to get the 3 straps. These 3 pieces will be joined together to make the strap that threads through here and ties behind. All right. You will also have to cut out for yourself the facing that actually goes here on your pattern. And in this picture you can see that that's the pink fabric that she's got on the edge there. And you'll need to cut out pockets. You need 2 pockets. On this one, they're diagonal, they're on a curve. This one doesn't have pockets you can see, but that is pocket 1, so you could get a pocket that's on the diagonal, or you can choose to have a straight pocket. I don't mind which one, but you can have either a pocket that has a diagonal line, or you can have a pocket that is just straight across the top. You can also add contrast. So you can see how she's got this contrast on the top of the pockets here, and even on the little person's pockets. You can do that too, and I'm going to show you how to do that as well. I am going to choose this pocket to do for my demo, so I can show you how to do this angle. It's very much the same with the straight pocket, but this one's just a little bit harder, so it's up to you which one you want to do. It doesn't matter which one you choose. All right, so we have our pockets. We're going to do our pockets. So I am going to create this diagonal top pocket, and we need to cut 2 of these. So we need to cut 2. I'm going to use this dark green fabric for my pocket, and I'm going to overlap it. I'm going to fold it over because we can cut out 2 at the same time. So we have our fabric. Please make sure it's nice and flat. If it's got creases in it, give it an iron. I had to do that. And we're going to lay our pocket right on the edge here. You need to make sure, see how there's a little cut out here? Make sure that you don't put it so that you're using that bit there, because that piece will mean you'll have a cutout of your piece underneath. So place it above. Make sure that it's straight. Make sure that the fabric is folded over so that your selvage, if you have a selvage, is nice and straight, and that you have no wrinkles, that everything is nice and flat, and that it fits on both the back and the front, so you can see that it fits. You can take it right over to the edge so we don't waste any fabric. This is just a scrap piece that I found, and I'm going to pin my piece down. So you're going to go around. I'm going to pin my corners first. So when you put a pin in, you're just going to go in, lift up a little bit and push it through. So we'll do it a bit closer to the edge here. So we're going to put the pin in, lift up the fabric a tiny bit and just push it through the other side so that you're holding your piece in place. Pin in, up, push through. I would do 1 pin in the middle and 1 on each corner so that we've got our pocket well and truly. You see that the other side, you can see that this fits on because that's right on the edge of the fabric. Now I'm going to cut this out. Now when we're using our scissors, our fingers are in the bottom and our thumb is in the top, and we're just moving the thumb. Okay, so we're going to cut down the side here. I'm holding this piece out of the way. Cut. I'm just going to cut that all the way off. I'm going to turn and I'm going to cut again. So you're just going nice and slow. These scissors are made so they can sit nice and flat on the table. They've got this flat surface. And so I'm just going to turn it again. I'm going to cut down this edge. I'm just going to cut that right off. Move the scrap pieces aside. And then I'm going to cut this bottom bit off. And then we have our 2 pieces of our pocket. Now, you're going to need to take the pattern off because we probably don't have enough for everyone to go around. So I'm going to take my pins out and put them back in my pin cushion, which is here. Always pin straight back in your pin cushion so that you don't have pins floating around. So there is my pocket pieces. They are going to go side by side like this on my apron. So there's my 2 pieces. I've got my 2 base pocket pieces and I've got, this is my contrast piece, my pocket contrast on the diagonal. I'm not going to use this color, but it will eventually go here and then here. So I'm going to cut that out of a different fabric. I'm going to cut that out of this pretty green fabric that will match nicely with the theme of my apron. So I'm going to, once again, fold this over like that, and I'm going to pop this here and I'm going to cut 2. Now, we need to make sure that this is on the diagonal like that this edge here is straight with this edge here. You see that? And we're going to pin this as well. I'm going to just pin each end and then the top. This one's not quite as big, so we won't need quite so many pins. And then we're going to cut around this one as well. Remember, keep your scissors nice and flat, like this. You can turn your fabric so you have better access. You don't have to make it difficult for yourself. Just cutting it out nice and evenly. Take your time. Remember, you're just moving your thumb up and down. Move your excess fabric out of the way. And there we have our pocket contrast. Once again, you're going to have to take that off. Now, my suggestion is once you've got these pieces cut out, you've taken off the pocket contrast and given it back to teacher, please put these 2 pieces back together and then put this piece on top, fold it up, and then pin it together. Put a pin in like that so you don't lose any of your pieces. You want to make sure that you keep it together. And the next thing we have to do is the contrast facing. Okay, so we're going to do our contrast facing. This is the facing piece here, and we need to put this on the diagonal. So can you see this arrow? This little arrow that's going diagonally? That means that that has to be on the straight grain. So you need a piece of fabric big enough to make this work. So I'm going to turn it that way, like that. Can you see that that is straight and in line with the bottom of the fabric here? We'll have a look. So there's the bottom of our fabric, and there's our line, and this needs to be straight so that this is on a diagonal because it needs to curve under your arm, and so we need to have this on the diagonal. I've overlapped my fabric again. So our fabric is in 2 pieces with the right side of the fabric facing out. The pattern is facing me, not the other. Can you see the difference between the side that isn't the right side? This side is much brighter and prettier. So I have my straight grain. I've made sure that it fits all over, and then I'm going to pin it. Make sure you pin nice and close to the edges. I'm going to bring it a bit closer. Okay, I'm going to put my pins in, lift and push, pins in, lift and push, pins in, lift and push. There we go. So that's on there nice and firmly. And now we can cut it out. So we're going to go around and we're going to cut along each of those edges. Make sure you don't cut the pattern. You're cutting the edge of the pattern. If you think you're a bit worried about cutting the pattern, you could trace around this and then cut it out. But you don't have to. You can just pin it on and cut around. Just keep turning so that you've got good access to your pattern piece. And we're going to cut all the way down. There we go. And then once again, this piece we're going to have to take off our pattern. Normally if I was sewing at home, I would leave my pattern pieces on. But because other people need to use them, we need to take these off. And so there's our facing pieces. And when we go to actually do this, we're going to add some interfacing to this as well. So I'm going to just put this aside for now, take my pattern piece off, and I'm going to attach it to the outside of my pockets like that, so that everything's together and you're ready to go. And that can go in your bag so that you don't lose it and you're ready to go when it comes time to sew. All right, I've decided that I want to create a top pocket, and so I thought I would use the straight pocket so I can also show you how to create the straight pocket. And I'm going to put embroidery on this pocket. So to do the embroidery, I have to use one of our NV180 machines. So this is the NV180 embroidery machine. I'm just going to turn it on the side here. It's basically the same as your machines, but it has a few little extra bells and whistles. This is a little LCD screen, and you just press on that, and you press on the OK, and this carriage will move into place. These are all the different, I'll just zoom in a bit. These are all the different patterns that we can do. Go back here, you can have all of these patterns. There's many, many, many. You can do pretty ones up here. We've got like pussycats. You can download these files. They're called PES files. You could also write your name. So if you wanted to just use text, you can write your name. Just have to make it a bit smaller. I'm not writing my name at the moment, I'm just pressing buttons. But there are a lot of options that you can do. I'm going to get rid of that pattern. I'm actually going to use a pattern that I've got on a USB stick. The USB stick's just on the side here, and I'm going to go down until I find the one I want. That's the one I want. I'm going to hit set. And that's the pattern that I'm going to do on my pocket. I'm going to put end edit and embroidery. And then we have to get the machine set up. So all the colours that are going to be needed for this pattern. I'm actually going to change those colours a little bit so it matches my apron a little bit better. And over here, this is the cotton that we use. So we don't use regular cotton. We use this beautiful satin finish cotton, and we leave them inside that case. We just take the top off, and I'll show you how to thread that in just a minute. Before we do that though, we have to put this piece of fabric inside this frame, and I'm going to show you how to do that. To get started, you need the piece of fabric that you need, and it needs to be bigger than this frame because we need to put it into the frame. And we need a piece of stiffening or interfacing that will go on the back. So I am going to move my piece of fabric out, and on top of this frame, it's all unscrewed. See how it opens a bit? Because we're going to squish this fabric inside it. So I'm going to lay that over the top, then I'm going to lay my fabric over the top. That. And then I'm going to get the outside frame out. On the bottom here, can you see there's a little arrow? That's the center of your fabric. Now I want this fabric to be up a bit higher because I want my pattern as in the middle of my product as I possibly can, but I want to put a band at the top as well. So I don't want that bit being used. I want it to be down here. Okay, so I'm going to shuffle it up a bit so that it's right on the bottom. Can everyone see that? So that you're going to see, and that it's in the middle. And if you want to, you can just fold it over and just do a bit of a finger press, or you can iron it if you would like. Do a finger press so you can get the center there, and do a finger press so you can get the center at the top. And now you can see this little fold I've got in the bottom here. And I'm going to just put that right in the middle, and then I'm going to squash this top bit on so it lines up with that fold. I'm just going to push it on, push it down, and then I'm going to tighten that screw on the bottom. Now we might need to use a screwdriver for that, but I will just use my fingers to start with, and then we will tighten it a bit more with the screwdriver. But that is the frame ready to go. Make sure it's really tight in there. Pull on the sides. Okay, pull on this side. Just pull on the sides so that this is like a bit of a drum. Okay, you want to get it really tight in there. Okay, and I'm going to get a screwdriver and tighten that up before we put it on the machine. I've got my screwdriver. I'm just going to tighten that really, really well. Just give it a few turns, because you can't do this with your fingers. You have to use a screwdriver. I'm going to pick off that piece of fabric. There we go. So it's in there, nice and tight, and we are going to put that on our machine. All right, you see these two little knobs on the side here? We're going to pop that underneath this foot. Now it's a different foot. This is not the foot. This is the embroidery foot, and it's like a little hoop. And we are going to clip it into the two little hooks on the side here. So we just push it in and it clicks. Make sure, so if you're embroidering something bigger, you need to make sure that none of the fabric is underneath the hoop, because this is where we're going to embroider. And I'm going to show you how to set up our pattern. Right, so we've got our pattern. That's the pattern I'm going to use. And before I end edit, I can change things. So I can make it smaller by decreasing it. I am going to make it a bit smaller. Okay, and I'm going to move it down. I want to move it down a bit. I want to go all the way to the bottom of my area. Okay, you could make it bigger, you could put it up in the top corner, but this is quite a big design, and so I can't make it any smaller than that. So I just have to hit end edit and then embroidery, and then I'm ready to go. Okay, so we've got our frame on. Now this is our cotton. I've decided this is going to be the first colour I use, and when we thread the cotton onto the machine, we actually thread it through the top of this cover, and then we put the cover back on. Please make sure that it's not caught in here when you put it back on, and then we just pop it on the machine and we thread it like normal. But you don't need to put the cap back on. Okay, these are heavy and you don't need to use the spool cap. So I'm going to thread the machine and I'll show you what it looks like. The bobbin cotton is a base cotton. It's always the same and it's threaded the same. It is one that looks just like this. Here it is. So it's just a white fine cotton thread, and they're all the same. So I've always got this just in the machine, and so that was already in there, and you just thread it the same way. Right, so there's my thread. Okay, I've threaded it exactly the same way as I would normally. I use my needle threader, and I'm just going, all I have to do now is I have to lower my foot, and when the foot lowers, this button goes green, and that means it's ready to go. And you just press the start button and it goes. Now that will continue to sew until, let it get going, so it'll lie down like a base stitch, and then it will come back over it and it will do a heavier stitch to fill it in. So it's basically like colouring in with embroidery thread. And if you have a look at the little screen here, there's a little X that moves around the screen to show you where you're at. And this is our list of colours. I've got my colours sitting out ready to go, the ones that I want to use. And as it finishes this colour, it'll move on to the next colour, and you just change that colour over. But it is going to continue to stitch until it's finished to doing that colour, and then it will stop and it will beep at you, and then you change the colour. Right, you see that this one has finished. So what I need to do now is I need to pull that cotton off. It cuts the thread for you, so you don't need to worry about cutting thread. So I'll pull that one off, and I need to change it over to this light pink color. And so once again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to thread the thread through this hole here, pull it out the end, make sure it's not caught, just give it a pull, make sure it's not caught, and then I'm going to thread it as per normal. So just going to come down like this, and up, and down, and use our needle threader to thread it in. Now, I always cut off a little bit of excess that is left over so you don't have a big tail. And we're going to press the button again. And it's going to stitch. When you are doing the embroidery, so I'm up to here now. I've done almost the whole butterfly, and I've come to this side here, and it actually shows you in the screen, right there. You see that that's the part that's about to be done, and I've changed my colour, so I'm going to go with a nice bright one, and it will sew just those bits that it's showing you in that screen there. Alright, so it's all finished, it's done the full run, and we have our final piece. Now to get this off, you just need to pull back on the clip. Hard to do when I'm not. There we go, so we pull back on that clip and pull it out. And you can see we've got lots of tiny little threads that are joining some of our products. So we've got like little thread here. So we're just going to clip and snip those threads. Eventually I'm going to take it off the frame so it's easier to do. Okay, to take it off the frame, let's bring it out here like that. And I'm just going to push up from the bottom. Push up from the bottom like that. And you have your final design. It's a tiny little bit off center, which I'm a bit annoyed about. That's okay. I'll actually make it in the center by trimming a little bit off this edge here. But that is what our design. I'm going to trim off all of these little threads, and we'll be ready to put the top on the pocket.